Why Trevor Story opting out will be incredibly detrimental for the Boston Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's all free. So make sure that you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Happy Thursday. Welcome to today's show. I deeply apologize for how late this episode is coming out. I've been traveling all day today and just have been all over the place, so haven't really gotten a chance to, up until this point, actually sit down and record, but I promise you tomorrow's episode will be dropping at a much more normal time. So as I continue my breakdowns of Red Sox position groups, Trevor Story in the infield is a big topic of conversation going into this offseason for Boston. Trevor Story could opt out of the final 2 years of his contract in Boston. And if he does, where exactly does that leave the Red Sox? Now, Trevor, up until 2025, hadn't really had a fully healthy season with the Boston Red Sox. He had spent some time playing on the field for Boston, but was missing a good portion of the season, the majority of the time, due to injury and due to not being able to come back in the time frame that he wanted to. So he went into 2025 and he said, I want to prove to everybody involved with the Red Sox organization, the fans included, that I belong here and that the Red Sox made a good choice in bringing me here. And that's what he did. He had a really good, really solid 2025 season. And it's not coincidental that it also coincided with it being his first fully healthy season here. So he finished the 2025 season with 654 plate appearances and 612 at-bats with 91 runs scored, 161 hits, and 25 home runs. He also stole 31 bases. He broke an American League record for his stolen base streak, which was a really fun storyline to follow throughout the course of the season. He had a 263 average, a 308 on base percentage, and a 433 slugging to go along with a 741 OPS. Now, this is a big leap from what we saw from him in 2024 and even in 2023. In 2023, he finished with just a 203 average. He only had 158 at-bats in that season, though, because he spent a lot of it injured. And then in 2024, he had a 255 average. One of the most interesting ones is how much his slugging percentage has increased over the last few seasons. So he had a slugging percentage of just 316 in 2023, which increased to 394 in 2024, and then 433 in 2025. So he took some leaps throughout the course of those 3 seasons, which is great. And it's good to see progress. And we were able to see progress from him. And the reason that he was so successful in 2025 was because he was not chasing the ball as much as we had seen before. Now, granted, he's still very poor in that category in just the 12th percentile. So he's still swinging at lots of pitches that he shouldn't be swinging at outside of the zone, but he was able to improve on that a little bit. He still struck out a lot. He was in just the 12th percentile for strikeout rate. And then in walk percentage, just in the 10th percentile. So he was striking out a lot and not really walking enough. So he was really lacking that patience that's truly needed. But he was in the 82nd percentile in average exit velocity, which was very good. And that shows that he was hitting the ball hard and very far. So that power that the Red Sox really needed was something that he did provide. He was one of the home run leaders on this Red Sox team this year, and the Red Sox didn't have a lot of guys who could hit home runs consistently. So Trevor helped stabilize that a little bit and provide some much needed power. He's also a right-handed hitter mixed in with a lot of lefties in this Red Sox lineup. Him being a righty means that he can go up and solidify the lineup in terms of versatility. Because when you have a bunch of lefty hitters in the lineup, it's going to be very difficult to navigate hitting against a left-handed pitching. The Red Sox struggled in general against left-handed pitching because those lefty-lefty matchups are insanely challenging. So when you have a left-handed pitcher on the mound, you need a guy like Trevor Story in the lineup who's likely to have more success against them. So that would be one downside to Trevor Story opting out. The Red Sox remain cautiously optimistic that he is going to be coming back and that he's not going to opt out. They just have so many player options this offseason. And when it comes to Story, they feel that he will opt in and play out the remaining 2 years and $55 million on his deal. One thing that may be impacting him right now is that the Red Sox can void his opt-out by adding an extra year and $20 million to the current deal, which would make him a free agent following the 2028 season at 34 years old. So the fact that the Red Sox haven't done that means that maybe they are hesitant to, and they just feel confident that they don't need to because he's going to decide to opt in. And they also might not know if they want to commit to another few years of Story at this point, because to justify it, it would essentially be one extra year from what he's committed to with the team now. And maybe the Red Sox are unsure that they would want to right now commit to that last year with him, not knowing what kind of season he's going to have in 2026. Because obviously, based on his 2025 season alone, it's easy to jump to a conclusion and say, yeah, we need to add that extra year to his deal. But there's not really a guarantee that he is going to perform at a level in which that would make sense and be worth it. So that's probably holding the Red Sox back. And on the flip side of that, it's probably holding him back from being willing to decide right now that he's going to opt in. He probably wants to put a little bit of pressure on the Red Sox front office when it comes to that contract restructuring. But if Trevor Story opts out, not only would the Red Sox be in trouble when it comes to having a huge lack of right-handed hitting in their lineup, but also his defense at shortstop is something that would take a major hit. And the Red Sox infield defense already struggles enough as it is. Trevor started making a lot of errors down the stretch, more than what we had seen from him previously. But for the majority of the season, he was so good defensively at shortstop, and the Red Sox really need that, because with defense being an area that Craig Breslow mentioned they are going to try to improve and tighten up on this offseason, that has to mean that they likely see Story coming back and know that they kind of need him there if they want to be able to find success from a defensive durability standpoint in the infield. So their defense would take a hit. They would lose a right-handed hitter in a lefty-heavy lineup, and their infield alignment would be cause for a bit of question, because Alex Bregman, another guy who could opt out and is going to try to pursue free agency, he had the option as well, and he chose to not opt in, and he just wants to see what he can get. But if he doesn't come back, then the Red Sox have a hole at third base. And then if Trevor Story also opts out and then the Red Sox don't bring him back, then that's a hole at shortstop. And then the second base situation already is up in the air as it is, as is first base, because of the Red Sox not really knowing if Triston Casas is going to be able to come back healthy and if he's really the guy at first base for the future that they trust. So there leaves a lot of questions surrounding the entire infield as a whole, because the question is also going to be, where is Marcelo Mayer going to play? And if Trevor Story doesn't end up in a Boston Red Sox uniform in 2026, then Marcelo Mayer likely would play shortstop, and then they have to figure out the third base situation. If Trevor Story does come back and Alex Bregman also comes back, theoretically, then Marcelo Mayer probably would start the season at second base. But the problem is they don't really know right now what that's all going to look like. So they don't really know what to prepare Mayer for in terms of what his position could be to start the season. So the Red Sox are in an interesting predicament right now because they can't really bank on him opting in if they're not 100% sure that he will. And if he opts out, then that's going to be a big hole that the Red Sox are going to need to fill, both from a veteran standpoint, a defensive standpoint, especially, and the offensive production that he provided. It just puts even more pressure on the Red Sox to get some big bats in the lineup. One, to replace the value that Rafael Devers provided before he was traded. And then also Trevor Story and the value that he provided as well. So it'll feel like there's a big hole in this Red Sox lineup if Trevor Story were to opt out and end up elsewhere. And that's where it also becomes a concern of the Red Sox know what areas they need to address in the offseason right now on how to improve this team. And because of the fact that they don't know what Trevor Story's decision is going to be, it's hard for them to know what they need to prioritize at this time. So hopefully he opts in and it solves a lot of those problems, because then they feel like he checks off a lot of boxes that they won't need to find a drastic replacement level player for. But if he leaves and he ends up elsewhere, they will really miss his presence, not only for his stellar defense, but also from his 2025 offense. So how's that going to go? One will tell with time. But coming up, I'm going to be going over the rest of the Red Sox infield depth. What options do they have to be everyday players next year? The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I love being able to make lots of money, and FanDuel absolutely does that. So get yourself involved with it and start winning money. So speaking of money, the Red Sox have some to spend this offseason, especially after offloading Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants and getting the Giants to agree to pay for the rest of his contract. The Red Sox have money and flexibility to work with, and they need to use that to their advantage this offseason and make moves that will put them in a position to be a true World Series contender next season. And part of that does start with getting guys to come back. Alex Bregman and Trevor Story coming back to man that side of the infield is huge. If neither one is in Boston next year, then they could have a very different look of an infield. And then there feels like there needs to be extra security added to this team. More sure players that are more proven, that you know will likely give you productivity for the course of the whole season, and leaves a lot less room for error. So bringing Trevor Story back, him deciding to opt in, would be huge for the Red Sox, because it really just solves and avoids a lot of things that the Red Sox would be missing. It just avoids them having to go and basically search the shortstop market and try to obtain somebody, when if Trevor Story comes back, then they can focus their efforts on other areas of the roster that need to be improved the most. So Speaking of Trevor Story, the Red Sox from an infield perspective had an interesting bunch this year. Some players who got their opportunity later on in the season due to injury and others who had been here. So at first base, Nathaniel Lau, a guy who the Red Sox picked up on waivers after he had previously been DFA'd for the last month plus of the season down the stretch, because they had Triston Casas, who went on the IL in early May with a season-ending injury. Obviously, you can't really anticipate something like that, so there's nothing they really could have done from the standpoint of being better prepared for that, because that's just not a thing. You really can't be. So it was heartbreaking and it was unfortunate, but Triston Casas, had he been healthy, would have been the everyday first baseman for this team. But after he went down, the Red Sox were kind of platooning that position and didn't really have a consistent everyday first baseman until they acquired Lau to fill the shoes in that role. And even he wasn't truly playing every single day. He was splitting time with Romy Gonzalez, who is a great utility player for the Red Sox and has floated around the infield, playing different positions that the Red Sox need him to play. And Romy performed this year for this Boston Red Sox team. I mean, very late in the season, he started to struggle heading into the postseason, but generally Romy was a good hitter and he would take care of business and get the job done. So he was platooning at first base a lot with Abraham Toro, who had been called up from AAA. Now, there isn't really a place for Toro on this team moving forward, but there likely is a spot for Romy to be able to still be on this team and see production, because especially with the Red Sox current infield situation and all of the unknowns, they're going to want a guy like Romy to be here to be able to play different positions and hop around the infield based on team needs. So if I'm the Red Sox, I'm definitely happy that Romy's here, because not only did he provide a big spark in the lineup, but he also is so flexible in terms of what position he could play. So I picture Romy being in a similar role this next upcoming season as he was in 2025. And I see that being a role in which he can move around the infield as opposed to having to just be stuck at first or second, because they truly should go out and acquire an everyday starting first baseman this offseason, because we don't know where things are going to go with Casas. We don't know how healthy he's going to be, if he's even going to be healthy at all, and how reliable he could be even if he does come back. And Nathaniel Lau, as much as he was able to provide a little bit more stability at first base later on in the season, the thing with him was that he wasn't good enough to be justified as an everyday player offensively. He just wasn't doing a whole lot when he came to Boston. So that's not really the answer every day at first base either. And Abraham Toro, for a good stretch of a few months, was one of the best hitters on the team. And then he started to struggle and couldn't really find a way out of that to get back to form. So that was tough to experience, because then the Red Sox had no choice but to send him back down to AAA Worcester and no longer have him be an everyday player that's in the first base mix, because he just wasn't producing. So those were primarily the players who played first base. Going into 2026, the ideal scenario at first base would be they go out and acquire somebody, and that person primarily is the first baseman, and then Romy can platoon in there if need be as well. But ideally, the Red Sox, if they do go out and acquire a first baseman, whether that's via trade or free agency, he would be the everyday guy. It would give Triston Casas more time to fully 100% recover and put less pressure on him to have to come out and be that guy. And it would save the Red Sox from having to rotate all these players in. And then they could use Romy Gonzalez in a role that he should be used in, which is more of that platoon guy instead of being relied on to be the everyday first baseman. So that's where I see the Red Sox going. If they don't acquire a first baseman this offseason, then that means they're either banking on Casas being healthy right away, or they're fine with just having Romy, for example, be the first baseman until he is fully ready, and that they just trust Casas to produce when he comes back. So it will be really telling to see how the Red Sox go about things on the first base market if they do decide that it would be worth it to either trade for somebody or sign somebody in free agency or not. Because if they say no and they just don't make that kind of move, then that sends a message to me that they have the faith in Casas to be able to perform at a high level when he comes back. So while Romy Gonzalez has played first base, he also can play second base. So the Red Sox second base depth is pretty slim. So several players experienced playing second base for the Red Sox in 2025, one of which being Cedar Rafaela. The Red Sox prefer to have him in center field every day, but the problem is when the Red Sox were dealing with injuries, they had to move him to second base. So he had the experience of playing there too, as well as Nick Sogard and David Hamilton. Now, Hamilton could not hit very well. And that was definitely by far a weak aspect of his game. But an aspect of his game that wasn't weak was his speed and his ability to steal bases. So David Hamilton came in handy for the Red Sox when maybe it was a close game and they wanted somebody to come in and pinch run, or if he was in the starting lineup that day, it's because Alex Cora really wanted as much speed in the lineup as possible. So when he would play second base, that would primarily be his position, but the Red Sox didn't have a consistent second baseman because Kristian Campbell also saw time there for the Red Sox in 2025, and now Campbell is obviously down in AAA. The Red Sox are going to have to do some reevaluation when it comes to him and really figuring out where he fits in with this team. Do they want to just give him the opportunity to prove himself during spring training and go into the season as the everyday second baseman, or do the Red Sox feel like he still needs more time in the minors? And it would be tough if the latter is the answer, because I know people are really excited about seeing Kristian Campbell break out because he had a really stellar first month of his rookie season in April. Very, very strong season for him. But then he started to struggle, and then he got sent back down. So the question from the Red Sox now is going to be, is he good enough, and do you feel confident to where he can start the season at second base? If the answer to that is yes, great. You trust Kristian Campbell. If the answer is him playing first base instead of going out and acquiring somebody, which they, by the way, should be doing, is going out and acquiring somebody. But if they decide no and they want Campbell to play first because he has played first base in Worcester this year, then that'll be it too. But then at least he has an identified position, because it's hard right now when he doesn't really have an identified position. And same with Nick Sogard, who also spent time at second base for the Boston Red Sox. He played third too. He kind of just played wherever in the infield that they needed him to. And Sogard was able to make things happen in the playoff push late down the stretch, and even in the wild card series against the Yankees. Nick Sogard was one of the biggest contributors on offense, getting big hits to drive in runs for the Red Sox. And it was great to see from a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience in the majors. So he also took reps at second base. So moral of the story is the Red Sox second base scenario is not one that's close to being resolved. A lot of things have to happen first before they know what direction they're going with that second base, because if by chance Alex Bregman and Trevor Story both end up with the Red Sox in 2026, then they would want to fit Marcelo Mayer in somewhere, which means he would probably be the starting second baseman. And that would make it a harder path for Kristian Campbell to come back up. But if one of those two players opts out and doesn't come back, because Bregman already has decided to opt out, whereas Story, we're still waiting to hear his decision. But if neither of them come back, then Marcelo Mayer would likely start the season at one of their positions. Shortstop is his primary position, so he would probably be considered the shortstop of the future if Trevor Story decides no. So then that creates a little bit more of an opening for Kristian Campbell to prove himself again and say, hey, I'm still here and I can be the starting second baseman. So that's an interesting position for the Red Sox. If they want to be a World Series contending team, they have to take that seriously, and they can't just continue to platoon guys and hope that it works out at whatever infield position it may be. You need to really get a solidified player to be your everyday go-to second baseman. You don't see the Dodgers in the World Series platooning players. It just doesn't happen. And yes, you bring in pinch hitters late in games and pinch runners. That's all different. you need your consistent everyday second baseman, and the Red Sox don't have one right now. And Kristian Campbell could pave his way back up to the majors and taking over that role. He just wasn't quite there yet during this past season. And the Red Sox wanted him to get there. So they said, okay, we're going to send him to Worcester to hopefully get some reps there and then come back up. So that's going to be a big key this offseason for Boston is let's go and solidify second base. Coming up, what did the Red Sox third base depth look like in 2025? You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. We all love being right, and I really hope I'm right in hoping that the Red Sox have a big offseason this year. I think they understand the task at hand, and they understand that this was a team that went to the playoffs in 2025. Now let's get them over that hump and make them a true World Series contender in 2026. In order to do that, they need to solidify their infield defense, especially because that was one of the weaker areas of this Red Sox roster. And speaking of defense, they had Alex Bregman, who had previously been a Gold Glover, at third base. And it showed because he was able to play a really sound defense on that side of the field. And that was one of the biggest reasons why the Red Sox acquired him in the first place, was because they wanted that sure and sound defense at third. So when Bregman was healthy, having him at third base was great for this Red Sox team. And that's part of what we'll miss if he doesn't come back next year, is the defense that he provided at third base. I'm hoping that he comes back, but there's always a question that he may not. He may pursue a different opportunity in free agency. But from a third base standpoint, the Red Sox felt like they were in really good shape with him. Romy Gonzalez and Nick Sogard also experienced time at third. Again, these are 2 players who could kind of play anywhere in the infield, depending on where the Red Sox needed them to play. Sogard was super flexible. He was just appreciative of being up in the majors. So he played third base, he played second base, he played first base. Romy Gonzalez also rotated through. So those guys are considered third base depth, but really just infield depth in general. Then you have Nate Eaton and Marcelo Mayer, both players who had also spent time in other positions. And both of those players were in AAA to start the season. Mayer got called up due to an injury around Memorial Day and made his debut then, but then he got placed on the injured list late in the season too. So he's been in recovery from that. And it gave naturally Nate Eaton more playing time. And Eaton was not somebody who was putting together a lot of competitive major league at bats. But what Eaton was doing, again, was being somebody who provided speed on the base paths to try to manufacture runs for Boston. The more speed you have on the roster, the more likely you are to be able to play small ball and be able to try to manufacture runs. And if I'm the Red Sox, I really value that skill. Nate Eaton is more of a AAA player. I don't think he necessarily was major league ready. And it was just tough because he was just putting together some non-competitive at-bats. So I expect him to start the season in AAA again. But one thing I will give Eaton a lot of credit for is his ability to continue to work hard and stay positive, even though he keeps getting sent back down to AAA. He's always just willing to do whatever the organization needs him to do. And that's what a lot of people in the Red Sox organization really do like about him. So Eaton is a guy who the Red Sox could consider as a depth piece that probably spends a lot of time in AAA, but if there's an injury or anything like that, he's somebody who could get called up to take that infielder spot. In terms of the shortstop depth, it's basically the same thing. Trevor Story, Romy Gonzalez, Sadam Rafaela, David Hamilton, and Marcelo Mayer. Again, these are all players who spent time at shortstop with the team. Trevor leading the way, but Romy Gonzalez, again, can play really any infield position. Sadam Rafaela has been known to be able to play second base and shortstop, so the Red Sox put him there when they needed to. David Hamilton, they kind of forced to play shortstop too, and Marcelo Mayer, his natural position is shortstop. So it's very interesting to think about the Red Sox depth in the infield right now and what they're going to do, because their depth is not nearly what it looks like in the outfield, and they can't confidently sit here and say, yeah, Nate Eaton can be an everyday player and it's fine. That's an area of weakness for this team, is the infield. They need to find a way to improve that, especially when it comes to first base and second base, the two positions that are very much up in the air right now in terms of guys being platooned and them not really having a legitimate option to play those positions on an everyday capacity. So when you look at where the Red Sox are at now, gotta hope Trevor Story opts in. Would be ideal if they bring back Alex Bregman too, because then you have that side of the infield shored up. Then you can play Marcelo Mayer at second base, and then bam, all of a sudden, then you're just worrying about acquiring a true everyday first baseman that you can feel confident in. And I'm not saying they're not confident in Casas. It's more, how do we know that he could come back from his injury and be able to be effective? That's the only thing to keep in mind when it comes to him. But overall, I definitely really like where this Red Sox team is at. And I'm hoping that the Red Sox make the right moves that they need to make to surround this young talent with. Then it's home free. Then it's the sky's the limit if they do this the right way this offseason. So thank you for tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen of every single day. Be sure to continue to check out Locked On MLB Game Night. The World Series is almost over, but our local Locked On experts have you covered all the way up until that World Series champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale. So make sure you find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Well, like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.